Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Inside Immigration. Today, we're joined by partner Shoshana Green and associate Sonia Sidhu. Please feel free to ask any questions through the pop-up text bar on your screen, and we'll do our best to address the questions at the end. If the panelists do not get to your question, you can contact them through the information provided on screen. And with that being said, I'm going to hand things over to our panelists.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you so much. It's our pleasure today to chat about our immigration world that we find ourselves in. Since the last webinar that Green and Spiegel has held, not that much has changed, but obviously there's updates and progression of different programs and different things. So what Sonia and I are going to do today is just give everyone a brief update and touch on the different subject matters that likely impact the majority of our client and interested party base. The first program that we want to focus initially on permanent residence updates. And, you know, this government has been, both the federal and provincial government have been pretty active in trying to create new ways of helping immigrants transition and pursue permanent residence here for Canada. A most recent update is through the Ontario government's provincial nominee program, the Ontario Immigrant Nominee, the OINP. And they've recently switched to an expression of interest system. And what that means is that they no longer open up their particular programs and tell people, you know, click on a button and see if you can grab a spot. Now they've switched to a system where people, similar to the express entry system, where interested applicants will create, we'll call them profiles, for the Ontario government, provide information about themselves and sort of self-identify with a particular program that they are potentially eligible for. And then the Ontario government issues invitations for those individuals who they have a point-based system. And most recently, since this program opened in 2021, in this expression of interest system, they've done it for sort of two scenarios, mostly the employer job offer one, where an applicant has a job opportunity from a qualified employer, and that employer obviously is based here in Ontario, has enough revenue depending where the employer is located. If they're in the Greater Toronto area, they've got revenue over $1 million. They have a certain number of employees, again, depending where they're located, over 3 full-time employees or 5 open full-time employees, and they've been in business for a sufficient period of time. So for those two scenarios, there's individuals who are here in work scenarios where they have a certain type of work experience that matches the employer's job criteria. They have at least 2 years in that. Or they're individuals who have recently, graduated from suitable programs of study. And they actually don't have to have any work experience. They just have to have the job offer. So for those two particular programs, they've issued, for the foreign worker one, 145 invitations, and for the student stream, 296. So that we hope through this expression of interest, where a lot of the information, it's all about making the different decision makers having access to information in a more expedited manner. And through this expression of interest, hopefully it's more digital, it's more user friendly, and it allows the decision makers to process these applications. We don't know the time frame yet because it's very, very new. And unfortunately, we don't know sort of the secret sauce. I mean, most people will have similar types of scores. It seems that they're focusing on certain regions or certain types of work experience that they'll give those applicants the opportunities. So that's the update for the Ontario program. The next one we want to touch on is the brand new program, which is open and closed. I'm going to let Sonia sort of touch on that, the temporary pathway to become a permanent resident. We call it a pathway program. So yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Shoshana. So the federal government did announce a new program. It's called TR to PR Pathways. It was launched on May 6th, so earlier this month. There is a quota system for this program, and now a lot of the program details are in our previous webinars or on our blog, so I'm not going to go too much details about what the program requirements are, but more of an update of where we sit a few weeks later. Now, the international graduate stream for this program is full, and it pretty much filled up within 24 hours of the program opening. However, the healthcare worker or the essential non-healthcare worker streams are fairly open at this point. So if you do qualify and you do have your language exams, it's in your best interest to try to get these files in as soon as possible, because we're suspecting a lot of the delays are coming from third parties of English testing being completed or the results being handed out, but we do suspect these quotas will be met. So I'll jump on to the next update for Express Entry and the trends. Express Entry is still going strong. We did have about 3 invites this month. We had a PNP draw earlier in the month of May 12th, and then we had 2 CEC draws. One was for 401, and then the next one was for 397, which was just last week. It's on a downward trend. It's very important to know, like, this is the second time the score has dropped below 400. The first one was a historic draw in February. So we are going to see, we suspect that the score is going to drop lower and lower into the 300s. So if you qualify for Express Entry versus the PNP, it may be in your best interest to do the Express Entry, because we do have more of a trend outlined, and the processing times we already know where they're sitting as. We're at the OIMP program. The PNP program is relatively new in terms of what they're going to do. Even though it's digital, we may think that it goes faster, but we just don't have any trends to follow at this point.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shoshana?
Yeah, no, go ahead. I just want to echo what Sonia is suggesting, that, you know, there's a lot of, we'll call it uncertainty as far as what program you can potentially pursue and ultimately succeed with. And I think that from sort of a strategy point of view, an individual's best bet is to always try and maximize their language score and to pursue, if they are presumably in Canada, high skilled work experience. The Pathways program, sort of that one that's still open for the government, you know, we just don't know when it's going to close. Yes, it's technically open till November, but there is uncertainty. I don't recommend any individual sort of pursuing what we call low skilled work, just because it limits your options. It's challenging for those people who are in Canada right now to know which program to focus on, because they're basically polar opposites. One program allows you to transition to permanent residence with low skills and low English, but the other program, Express Entry, wants you to have high skills and higher language. So, I mean, I think the more certain path is to just try and improve on your language, pursue that high skilled if you can, and that would be my advice, to focus on that, unless you've already you're close to the end of your work permits. Because the other sort of touch point here, as far as having, you know, a strategy to succeed and a strategy to be able to remain in Canada, Express Entry allows you that bridge work permit, whereas this Pathways program, as it stands right now, does not have that option. So, you know, Sonia and I were chatting about it before. It's just, it's frustrating for clients, because, you know, which basket am I going to put all my eggs in? From my perspective, your best bet is just to focus on working, high skilled, and language. And as Sonia said, the points are dropping, and hopefully, you know, people will be able to pursue through Express Entry. That has always been my favorite process. Hopefully it continues in the future. It's in the way the government's going now. Obviously, those individuals who are in Canada have the only option to Express Entry now. The Federal Skilled Worker Program is, for all intents and purposes, on pause, just because they're not inviting people. But again, we don't know when they're going to flip the switch to allow federal skilled workers to pursue their applications through the Express Entry system.
Yeah, so like if you have a tried, trusted, and true path, which is the Express Entry, that is more beneficial. We don't know if the TR and PR pathway is going to come back after these program is closed in November either, right? So if you're already on a path to CEC, stick to that path, because that program is around, and we don't see any end in sight. Now, in terms of tying everything together, Canada's immigration minister has been pushing the idea of digitalization of immigration systems. We've seen it with the whole expression of interest system, the TR to PR pathway. It's all been online. There, with the targets of immigration being increased, a digital system is much needed. So in terms of that, they're trying to streamline things by creating more prioritized or application process. So for example, if you have a study permit, instead of doing numerous forms that ask for the same information over and over again, they're just trying to make it very niched out. If you're applying for a study permit, it's tailored to that study permit. With that being said, it's important these things change overnight. So if you are doing an application for any sort of paper-based, check online before you're ready to submit to see, has it gone online? Do I need to submit it online? Can I still do a paper-based? Because at this point, we don't know if there is a grace period from the change from paper to online. For example, a lot of the PNP federal-based have gone online and it's switched without even any prior notice. So just be very careful and check online before you submit any applications.
Yeah, I would say, the online world is very, very efficient and helpful, but it also gives the government the ability to refuse applications very, very quickly. So if an individual puts forward an application online and they forget or they put the wrong document up, that's a nice, easy way for the government to refuse your application. So you don't want to be in that position. You want to make sure you've done everything correctly, triple checked everything, because the flip side to this digital world is that it just allows the decision maker to refuse you that much quicker. And you may lose an opportunity because of a refusal, and you want to get the best advice in that, and as far as maximizing your opportunities.
Yeah, with all these new programs that come out besides the Express Entry, when you do submit your file, you don't actually get a file number, because you can't really do a case inquiry to upload those documents. So you have to be very careful that you uploaded everything that was required. And sometimes things are required that you don't see a drop down to, and they need to be attached at other locations. So you have to be very careful to make sure you meet all the requirements for the programs.
Yeah, the other matter I want to say with, going digital with all of these applications is the government also loves to look at your history, and with the click of a button they have access to your records, to your history. So there's a very nice opportunity for the government to also catch you in certain circumstances if you haven't been as honest as you should have been with those applications. And so that's why clients need to be super careful, super diligent, and just they can't make mistakes when it comes to these types of processes anymore, because the government's getting smarter and smarter, and they have access to information very, very easily and very quickly. So we just want to make sure that people really are careful, get the best advice on that. Okay, so I think, yeah, we'll switch. Sonia, you want, the travel updates. Our world continues to be small but big. With respect to the travel updates, India and Pakistan, Sonia, when's it extended till now?
It is until June 21st. They're saying at least till June 21st. So basically, there is a very good catch that it will be extended. It is only on direct flights. There are non-direct flights coming in, but if you are choosing to go that route, you have to make sure you do all your research to see the country you're transiting to, what their quarantine requirements are. Are you going to be able to get that COVID test prior to entering Canada within that X amount of hours? These are going to be very costly, so you have to make sure you do your research. It can become a big nightmare if you're trying to do a non-direct flight from India to somewhere, then to Canada.
Yeah, I mean, and that's had a trickle-down effect as far as the situation in India with respect to immigration, because the panel physicians, if you need to do upfront medicals, they've stopped doing them because they want the doctors to focus on taking care of their, the medical needs of the country itself and not doing Canadian immigration medical requirements. But we know that people are still able to do them if they can make appointments sort of for applications that are in process. It's challenging because these rules are changing daily, and you just things can change on a whim. Unfortunately, that's our world right now, but God willing, things turn the corner and they start to improve, and we've got what it's May 26th, so June 21st, who knows what the world will look like at that point. Hopefully things are better and certain things reopen. And then that leads us to our own border, the Canadian-US border. That potential reopening, obviously there's pressure on that for it to happen, but as it stands, nothing has changed. Only essential travel for entering Canada, and no visitors, traditional visitors. And there's obviously the continued testing requirement before arrival, the potential hotel quarantine upon landing at air, but not at the land borders. There was a lot of discussion how they were going to try, and there was a push for hotel quarantines upon land borders, but that hasn't happened. I don't necessarily think it will happen. Sort of it's status quo for the time being. But we've got the increased vaccination rate in the US and Canada here, so that hopefully will have an effect on the policies moving forward. Right now, all of the bans, you know, and everything is lined up to June 21st for the rest of the world, India, Pakistan specifically, but outside of North America, within the border with the US, and you know, we're still waiting. Do you have any other comments, Sonia, on the vaccination piece?
No, so basically, yeah, it's just waiting for the vaccination. A lot of people are trying to cross into the US to get vaccinations. You have to tread with the implications of that travel. It's not a permitted reason to travel into the US. So the US has made it very clear it's not an essential reason to travel into the US. So Canadians will be refused entry. However, it can be an incidental product. So basically, let's say if you're a truck driver and you're driving across for work and you end up getting your vaccination, that's allowed. But if you're traveling solely for the purposes of vaccine, you're going to be refused entry. And even if you get in by some off chance, coming back, you are going to have to quarantine. There is no quarantine exemption for you saying you went to get a vaccine. Now you want to have a quarantine exemption entering back into Canada, you are going to have to quarantine. So just have those implications in mind before you try to go down that road. But I mean, vaccines are being rolled out fairly quickly here in Canada now. We are catching up fairly quickly to the US. I think there is speculation that we may pass the US in the percentage of people being vaccinated. So it may not even be something that anybody wants to do in a couple of weeks. With that,
yeah, I mean, things are hopefully getting better.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. We have some good news on that.
Yeah, we do have some good news to end with. It's not all done. We have travel to Italy has been opened up. Canada has been put on Italy's D list. So now you can travel to Italy without the requirement of self-isolating if you're on a COVID tested flight. Now, a COVID tested flight means that you've produced a COVID test that is negative within 48 hours of your departure. You have to do a rapid test that comes out negative at the time of your departure, and you have to do a rapid test that's negative when you land. If that all lines up, you can travel to Italy and you can be a tourist, you can enjoy it and then come back, which is great news. And it's a trend showing that, hey, things might be slowly getting back to normal and we may be able to get out there with everything going on.
We wanted to end on a positive note.
Yeah.
It's all the doom and gloom. So Italy's the positive note, but I think on a whole, I think there's probably going to be a lot of pressure on the government now that, you know, so many people are getting vaccinated. The rollout is going well. I mean, we're based here in Ontario. Things are a bit tougher and longer here, but out in BC, they just, you know, announced their reopening, which is really positive. So hopefully we'll learn some lessons from BC, which is guiding the way here, in my opinion. And that's where we're at, sort of, from an immigration perspective at this time. So Stephen, I'm not sure if we have any questions.
So I've had a look and it seems we do not have any questions. So that is all the time we have for today, folks. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's webinar, and a special thanks to Shoshana and Sonia for sharing their expert knowledge. If you would like to discuss today's topics in more detail, please reach out and book a consultation. Details can be found on screen now. I'd also like to encourage everyone to sign up to our alerts and follow us on social media to keep up to date on the latest developments inside Canadian immigration. Until next time, everybody, stay safe.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.